Hello again and welcome to Analog Comics. This time I'm going to talk about a big sci-fi classic. It's called The Forever War. Originally, Forever War was a book, novel, the kind that doesn't have pictures in it. However, later it was also adapted into a comic form. And as it happens, it turned out to be just as good as the original book. So why not take a closer look at it and see what makes it tick. Oh, before we start, I need to put my eyes on. There we go. The Forever War is written by Joe Haldemans and drawn by Marvano. Marvano is a pen name. His real name is Mark van Oppen, but he shortened He made the pen name out of the first letters of his tree name. Although I think anyone can enjoy these comics without knowing the backstory, I'd rather tell it because it has a big effect on why it turned out to be so good as it is. Then there is few things to mention about the formats and publishers, and I'll get to them also later. Joe Haldemans was serving in Vietnam War as a combat engineer. His war ended when he stepped on a landmine. But luckily he survived, but had to spend 5 months in hospital healing and relearning to walk. While Haldemans was in the war, he kept diary in the form of letters to his wife. And from those letters, he came up with the story of the Forever War. Haldemans was also a big fan of science fiction. And as it happens, he had a very good basis for a science fiction writer. I'll read it to you. There is his CV, so to speak. It says that Joe Haldemans has a degree in physics and astronomy with postgraduate work in mathematics and computer science. And I can see in this story how all that has helped him create the type of story that the Forever War is. The Forever War was published as a book in '74, but the comics came out only in 1988. And it was Marvanos' idea. He wanted to turn them into a comic. He really loved the story, and Joe Haldemans gave him the green light, and after that it was more Marvanos' project. The book itself has been awarded Hugo and Nebula Awards at least, and it went on to sell over 1 million copies. In fact, I had read the book before I bought the comics, and that was the reason why I bought the comics. I was still a teenager when I read the book, The Forever War, and I remember feeling that it was one of those first and rare cases that I actually read a literature, not just an adventure book. I was always reading sci-fi, but this wasn't just big guns and spaceships. I really felt that I read a book that was much smarter than me, and it made an impact on me. And when I noticed these comics on the comic book store, I bought them right away. I also need to say that I remember after reading the comics how thrilled I was that they were so close to the original material. I felt like Marvano has really just changed the book into a comic form. Of course, you always had to compress certain things, but everything that was meaningful is here as in comic form. But since that, I have never read the book anymore, but I have read these comics at least in 3 to 5 year intervals, over and over again, always revisiting, and every time enjoying immensely the whole experience. But so you have to forgive me that it's my memory of a memory that these are exactly like the books, at least in their most crucial parts. Then a quick word about how these were published. The books I have here are European album size, which is my favorite. It's the best format ever for comics. And these are published by NBM. They are no longer available or in press, but if you manage to get your hands on the albums, there are 3 of them. Covers are like this. This is the first part, second one, and a third one. And later they were published by Titan Comics again, but in a smaller format. This is the US trade paperback size. I will show you this for comparison. The difference in size is pretty big, but I have to say that in this case the size doesn't matter so much. Marvanos art is really good, but there's not too much details there. It is details, but there's also, as you can see from the cover, there are these areas. It's breathing. The pictures are breathing. It's not too fully crammed, so downsizing the panels doesn't actually hurt it. In fact, the version I showed you is not the Forever War. This is Forever Free, which is the sequel. And I have nothing to say about the sequel because I didn't remember I had this. I found this from another place on my comic shelves. I know I have read this once. I always do before I put them on the shelf. I can't remember what's in it, so we're not going to talk about the sequel at this point. But I just feel like I got a free comic. It's a good find. But this is just for the size comparison, and you know that there's a sequel. But no comment on the quality of it. And also I need to mention about the story that Robert Heinlein, the writer of such classic like Starship Trooper, he has said that the Forever War is maybe the best future war sci-fi book ever written. Also Ridley Scott, director of such like Alien or Blade Runner, he was trying to make a movie out of this. I think it was 2008. And there were still rumors around 2016 that the script is still very much ongoing. I also need to mention Bruno Marchand. He was the colorist for this book. The type of colors he is using, they really give a unique feel for the book that I always, when I'm looking at it, I feel like this art and colors is a combination that I can't really compare to anything else. It's like its own thing. I can see in Marvanos style, here and there I can see in different panels, I feel like I see other European great comic artist styles, like little hints of them, but still it's his style. And I think the colors complement. They work really well together. What's the story of the Forever War? Well, as I said, it's based on Haldemans' own experiences in Vietnam. It tells a story of William Mandela. He's the guy here in the cover. And how there is an intergalactic war with an alien race. When he goes into training, there has been, allegedly at least, said that there has been already some kind of attack from that alien race. But no one has ever seen them. There's no photo of them. They don't even have any DNA or anything about them. So very little info. And Mandela is part of a group that has been, that is in training and will be trained to fight that alien threat. The fights will be so far from Earth that they have to use these collapsar points. They have to travel at the relativistic speeds, and those jump points, they are close to black holes. And this is one of the important factors in the story. There is this hard science behind. One of them is time dilation. In case you were not aware, time is relative. So person who is moving fast or faster than you, time moves slower for him in relative to yourself. It's a weird but proven fact of the universe. No one knows why it happens, but that's how it happens. The effect of this time dilation is that while Mandela is on those missions, going back and forth, although the time might be only going for him for like 2 years, it could be 10, 20 or even 100 years or even more on Earth. When he comes back from missions, everything has changed also at home. People are different. His younger brother is at one point much older than he is. But it also means that the world he is fighting for is getting stranger and stranger all the time. And I found that to be the most profound message in the story. Because the story is made from Haldemans' letters to his wife, kind of diary, it translates to the tone of the text. Even from the start, there is this documentary feeling, as if the person telling the story has already lived it. So he has this wisdom of hindsight, of kind of recollecting what happened. And that brings certain certainty and even sadness to the whole story. And the story as it progresses shows how the world is getting stranger and stranger around Mandela, and how he is becoming more and more estranged in his own world. He's fighting for a culture, people, technology that he doesn't even understand anymore. And that progress just kept speeding up the further the story goes. And it's done so brilliantly here. There are fighting scenes here. There is a lot of tension, blood and violence, but it's not, for me, it was not about that. It really was the journey. I was not even so much interested of, it didn't mean so much how it ended, but I did want to see the end. I wanted to see where Mandela ended up, but the real meat on the bone was the progress. And it really underlined the vanity, violence, and the cruelty of war inside an individual's head. Haldeman is really good at depicting the war machine, how it becomes a machine where one man doesn't matter. But I feel that it never enters the area where it starts preaching to the reader. In fact, one of the reasons why the Forever War book sold so well was that it was so well received politically, left and right, both extremes, because the way it was written and the tone was so that anyone could come out of it with what they wanted. No matter what kind of angle or attitude or ideology you had, you could still read it and kind of see what you wanted. For this reason, I read some of the reviews I could find of the book and also for the comic. And I didn't agree with most of them. I did agree with the things that these people had found there. They were there, I can't deny that. I know they are there, but I didn't feel that they were the most important thing, or I didn't feel that that was the core message of the story. And I found that to be a really amazing thing in one story, that you can have so many different angles on it. The fact that I've been in the army, I'm from Finland, and in Finland basically every man after 18 years old, they have to be part of the army for a while. I was there for a year, but I got to see the machine inside. I got to see how that thing works, and even a little bit understand it, why it's so big and kind of uncaring when you're working with thousands of people and you have to make them kind of move to the same direction. Depending on how you see it, it can be funny, frustrating, or all of those things and everything in between. But maybe that might be the thing that I wasn't so much focusing on the army's little weirdness here. I am intentionally avoiding going into too detailed into the story. Although there's one thing that I found to be very clever with the time dilation. There's one moment when Mandela is asked to go to a very distant planet to train new troops for the upcoming fight. And when he hears the planet, how far it is, he realizes that the people he is going to train, they haven't even been born yet. And it's this kind of hard sci-fi things that gives you little wow moments. But I also think that Marvano has done superb job at inventing how to depict that world. I also like a really lot of how they handled the enemy, how the enemy is shown in the pages and the panels. And I realized only at the very end that there's a certain particular thing that was kind of missing, and it was a really cool detail. And I realized it only when I got to the very end of the story. And it added a lot to the strangeness and vagueness of this enemy, so that the enemy becomes only one small issue in the life of a soldier, where in everyday life there is the training, there is moving, preparing, waiting. That is how the soldiers mostly use their time, and the battles are in time, they are quite short periods in fact of their lives. So that was Joe Haldemans The Forever War. And as I said, these NBM albums are probably pretty hard to find, so look for the Titan book version, smaller but still as good. I did look a bit inside this, my new kind of free album, and I have to say that the graphics, it doesn't suffer at all being a bit smaller size. Highly recommended, one of my favorite sci-fi stories ever. And if you want to see more presentation like this, maybe leave on the edge and subscribe to this channel also. At least give it a thumbs up. But anyway, see you in the next one. Bye.